Alright, welcome back to another video. This is going to be part 2 of my electronics series. In my first video, if you haven't gone and seen it, go watch that first. But in the first video, I basically took a photoresistor and a couple of LEDs, and I was able to, when I removed the light from the photoresistor, I was then able to have the LEDs light up, basically indicating like a mood lamp or a night light kind of situation. But in today's video, we're going to be taking some of those same components, in this case the LEDs, and what we're going to do is today we're going to include buttons and a little bit of a buzzer just to make some noise and sound to add another component to the components that I'm using. So today when I press the buttons, we should then see the LEDs light up to the associated buttons, and then also when I press both buttons, I'm going to make a sound with the buzzer. So let's get started. Okay, so I have my Arduino. I'm just using the footage over here, but today I have my Arduino Uno. This was again provided by Creation Crate, but then a couple of other components were also provided by Creation Crate. They're not a sponsor, but so we're going to start with putting the buttons on, and I just have two red and blue buttons, and then I also have the associated red and blue LEDs. So let's put the buttons on first, and I'm just going to span these out across the breadboard since they're pretty large. And so I'm putting the pins down like this, going over the breadboard. And so we're going to have this come down, and we're going to start this one off at pin 5. Or not quite 5, but somewhere in that vicinity. And press these in. And I've heard these break quite easily, so I gotta be careful with them. Okay, so the blue one's in. And then we're gonna span you to 15. And we're gonna press you in, get you all solid. All right, so now that the buttons are in, you're gonna press in. All right, the next thing we're gonna do is we're going to put the LEDs in. And basically I'm just gonna span these across the board. No particular placement at all, but we're going to span, just for my knowledge, I'm going to put the positive side, the long edge, facing towards the buttons, so that way I know. We're going to put you on 30, and then we're going to take the red one, and we're going to put you at 35. And again, long side facing the buttons, just so I know exactly where it is. Now that it's down. Okay, so then now that we have the buttons and the LEDs placed, the next thing that we're going to be using is this little buzzer, piezo buzzer, something like that. I don't know. But either way, we're going to place it all the way to the end of the board, just so we know exactly where it's at. It's not like it's gonna run away or anything. But, so basically, since I know that this is a positive and a negative side, what I need to do is I'm going to take this little jumper, and I'm going to connect the circuit. So basically what we want to do is, since we're going to have a positive side coming in and a negative side going out, that's what I've learned is all electronics there. It's just a positive and negative flow of electricity. So I'm going to take this small little jumper cable, and I'm going to go and put it on the ground side, and then I'm going to jump it to the columns. And then I'm going to take the pin, the smaller pin, and I'm going to place it in the same column so it lines up. And then the positive side is going to come in, and we're going to jump that from Arduino, which is basically going to tell us when we need to create the sound and what type of sound. So then if we work backwards, we're going to do the same thing for the LEDs. The LEDs, same thing, we're going to need a positive side current, which is going to come from the Arduino pins, basically when to tell it to light up. But then the same thing for the negative, we want to have it jump to the negative rail. The only thing is with the LEDs is I've learned that from the Arduino, it's going to provide 5 volts, and 5 volts is enough to blow the LED. So we're going to need to have a resistor in place. And this resistor is going to help not break the circuit, or break the LED. So we're going to basically go from the negative rail all the way to the same, or to the right after, sorry, my finger's blocking it, right after where the negative side is. So we're gonna jump that to the negative rail. And then we're gonna do the same thing for the red LED. So the same column that it is in, and we're gonna jump that to the negative rail. Okay, so that's what I've learned so far. And then the buttons are the same thing, essentially, but this is where I actually had to learn how to place them to know exactly how the flow is going to be created. So the first thing we're going to do is the positive side of it is going to come from the breadboard, and this is where our 5 volts are going to be supplied from the Arduino. But then I learned that basically when you create the flow of electricity for the buttons, we want to know exactly when it turns off. And so we're going to have, because of that consistent flow of electricity, we're going to use something called a drop-down resistor. And this is basically going to allow us to then minimize that current, so that way when we do press it, we get a exact number of when it was pressed. Because of that consistent flow, we want to interrupt it so that way we know exactly when it was pressed. So we're going to span this on one side as the negative. So we're going to have on the button, there's going to be one side is a positive and then one side is a negative. So we're going to drop this resistor on the negative side, just like the buttons. And so I'm placing it in row 15 because that will be where the negative side connects. And then I found placing these to be very difficult. Okay, and so we're going to do the same thing for the blue side. We're going to put some resistors in. So same thing, this is going to pin 5. Or not pin 5, but column 5. So we're going to drop that to the negative rail. Okay, amazing. Okay, so now that these are in, what we want to do is we're going to start to provide the positive currents. So what I would like to do is I'm going to take this, the small jumper cable, and we're going to provide it from the positive side. So up here on this little rail, we're going to provide it power. Okay, so we're going to provide it there. And then we're going to do another one for right here. Okay, perfect. So then now the button will have a flow of electricity going in, and then we have the negative side producing the resistor. So now what we'll need to do is we'll basically need to connect this to a jumper cable. So we're gonna provide a jumper cable, which is gonna then allow us to connect it to the Arduino. Okay, so and where I'm going to be placing this is actually after the red button on the negative side, because basically if you think about it, the current is going to come like in a circle, and so when we press the button, we want to read after it, because once we read after the flow, that means it's stopped, and that means we're going to turn off the circuit, right? We're going to turn off the circuit for a second, and then we're going to let it continue after the button press. So I'm putting that in there. And same thing with the blue button. We're going to provide it on the other side. So technically we have our 2 input jumper cables. And what we're going to do is now connect these to the Arduino. And I'm going to put them on, since they're further down the board, we're just going to give it 11, or let's just do 13 and 12. Okay. So now we have our buttons all set up. So we have a positive side coming in and the negative side going out. And then on the negative side, we then have our jumper cables, which then will connect to our Arduinos pins, and then we'll be able to read the values. Okay, so the next thing is we want to go back down the line, and we're going to provide a positive current to our LEDs. And this is also going to come from the Arduino. So we'll use just pins 7 and 6 since they're right next to each other. And we're going to place this on the positive side of the button. So we're going to go up the rail and on 30. Okay, so looking good. So that way now we have a positive side coming from our Arduino to then tell when the button should be turned on. And then we're going to take the negative side to the resistor, which then jumps into the ground rail. Same thing for the red. And now what we're going to do is we're going to provide an input, which is the positive side, for the little buzzer. So this is also going to come from our Arduino. And let's just put that on 2. And let's figure out what rail that is on. So we're going to go up the chain and keep it right there. Okay. Awesome. So yeah, so then now our circuit is almost complete. We only have 2 more things, and that is to provide a ground power, or sorry, a 5-volt power from the Arduino to the rail, and then also the ground from the rail. So what we're going to do is we're going to put this into the 5-volt pin right here on the bottom side, and we're just going to provide that to a random pin on the board. Okay, so right there. And then same thing with the negative side. We're just gonna, the negative rail, we're gonna have the jumper cable on the random place, but then we're gonna connect this to the ground. Okay, so now that our circuit is complete, now we get to code for it. Okay, so I'm gonna grab my little power supply here, and I'm gonna plug it in. Okay, so now that it has power, we want to code for it. So now that the board is complete and coded for, let's test it out. So when we press the blue button, we get the blue LED to light up. And when we press the red button, we get the red LED to light up. Let's get that out of the way. But then when we press both buttons at the exact same time, we should hear the buzzer. Awesome, it is working. Okay, so that is going to conclude this second part to this electronics series. If you have any recommendations or ideas of what I can do to incorporate into the next projects, please be sure to let me know, and I can absolutely accommodate to that. But until next time, see ya.